"Don't open that door. Stay in the truck." Those words came from Dennis, the snowplow driver who'd been giving me rides to work for the past 3 months. But tonight, his voice carried a terror I'd never heard before. He reached across and locked my door, his weathered hand shaking. Through the frosted window, I could see my grandson Kevin standing in our driveway, and the look on Dennis's face told me everything I needed to know. My grandson had come to kill me. But let me start at the beginning, 3 months ago, when the house fire took everything. I woke up to smoke alarms screaming at 2 a.m. on a November night in Winnipeg. The furnace had malfunctioned, they said later, an electrical fire that spread through the walls before I even knew what was happening. I barely made it out with my wallet and the clothes on my back. Everything else, 63 years of memories. My late wife Margaret's photographs. The furniture we'd picked out together, all of it turned to ash. The Red Cross put me up in a motel for 3 nights. Then I called Kevin. My grandson was 29, working in IT for some company downtown. After my son Daniel died in that mining accident up in Thompson 7 years ago, Kevin was all I had left. Daniel's wife had remarried and moved to Vancouver, so it was just me and Kevin, or so I thought. "Grandpa Robert, hey," Kevin answered, sounding distracted. I could hear video game sounds in the background. "Kevin, son, there's been a fire. The house is gone. I was wondering if I could stay with you for a bit, just until I figure things out with the insurance." Silence. The video game sound stopped. "A fire? Jesus, Grandpa. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Just shaken up. The fire inspector says it'll be months before." "Look, Grandpa, I want to help. I really do. But Brittany and we're in a really good place right now. We just got the apartment how we want it, you know? Having someone else here, it would disrupt everything we've built." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Kevin, I raised your father. I helped raise you. I'm not asking for a mansion, just a couch for a few weeks." I know, and I appreciate everything you did, but Grandpa, you're 67 years old. You've had a whole life to save money, to prepare for emergencies. One fire doesn't make you helpless, right? You're a capable guy. You'll figure it out." He hung up before I could respond. I sat in that motel room, staring at the phone, trying to understand what had just happened. My grandson, the boy I'd taught to fish, the kid I'd driven to hockey practice every Saturday for 5 years, had just told me to figure it out. The Red Cross caseworker, a kind woman named Maria, helped me apply for emergency assistance. But Manitoba winters don't wait for paperwork. I needed income, and I needed it fast. The insurance company was dragging their feet, talking about investigations and claim adjustments. I found a job posting at a 24-hour grocery warehouse in the industrial park off Route 90. Night shift, minimum wage, stocking shelves, and loading trucks. The kind of work I hadn't done since I was in my 20s. But I was desperate. The problem was getting there. The warehouse was 12 kilometers from the subsidized housing unit Maria had helped me find. No bus routes ran that far out at 11 p.m., and I certainly couldn't afford a car. That's when I met Dennis. I was walking along the shoulder of the highway that first night. November wind cutting through my second-hand coat, when a massive snowplow pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, revealing a man about my age, maybe a bit older, with a gray beard and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "You lost, friend?" he called over the rumble of the engine. "No, sir. Just heading to work at the warehouse up ahead." "At this hour? In this cold?" He looked concerned. "Hop in. I'm heading that way anyway." I hesitated. Margaret had always warned me about accepting rides from strangers, but the wind was picking up, and I could already feel the cold seeping into my bones. "Name's Dennis," he said as I climbed into the warm cab. "Dennis Kowalski. Been running snow removal for the city for 32 years. Robert Morrison. I appreciate this more than you know. Where are you coming from?" I told him. Not everything. Not at first. Just that I'd had some bad luck and needed to get to work. Dennis nodded, didn't pry, just drove. When we reached the warehouse, he handed me a business card with his cell number. "I do this route every night during winter season," he said. "Same time, same road. If you need a ride, I'll be here." I couldn't impose. "Robert, I drive past here anyway. It's no imposition. Besides, nobody should have to walk Route 90 inches a Manitoba winter. I've seen what happens to people who try." That was the beginning. For 3 months, Dennis picked me up every night at 10:45 p.m. We'd drive to the warehouse, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his late wife, Susan, who'd died of breast cancer 5 years ago, about his daughter who'd moved to Australia and rarely called, about the loneliness of his big empty house in River Heights. I told him about Margaret, about the house fire, about my son Daniel, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him about Kevin. It was too shameful, somehow, too painful to admit that my own grandson had turned me away. Dennis never asked for gas money, never made me feel like a burden. When I tried to thank him, he'd just wave it off. "We old guys gotta look out for each other," he'd say. Around the 6-week mark, I started bringing him coffee, then sandwiches. There was a Tim Hortons near my housing unit, and I'd stop there before our rides. Dennis would protest at first, but I could tell he appreciated it. I'd watch him unwrap the sandwich, always turkey and Swiss. No mustard, and the way his face would light up told me it meant something. Maybe he was just as lonely as I was. "You know, Robert," he said one night in January, "you're the best part of my day. Isn't that something? Two old fools driving through a snowstorm, and it's the highlight." I laughed, but I felt the same way. For those 20 minutes each night, I wasn't a man whose family had abandoned him. I was just Robert, riding with my friend Dennis. The insurance money finally came through in February, $175,000. The house had been paid off, so it was all mine. Enough to rebuild, or buy something smaller, or even retire if I was careful. The adjuster deposited it into my bank account on a Tuesday. I made the mistake of mentioning it to Kevin. He'd called the week before, first time in 3 months. "Hey, Grandpa, just checking in. How are you doing?" The sudden interest should have been a warning sign, but I was so starved for family connection that I didn't see it. "I'm managing," I told him. "Actually, I just got the insurance payout. It's enough to get back on my feet." "That's great. That's really great, Grandpa. Listen, I was thinking maybe we should get together, talk about your options, you know? I work with numbers all day. Maybe I could help you invest it properly, make sure you're set up for the future." Something in his tone made me uneasy, but he was my grandson, my blood, so I agreed to meet him for lunch. That's when things started getting strange. Kevin brought paperwork to lunch. Investment documents, he called them. High-yield accounts that would maximize my returns. He needed me to sign some forms, give him power of attorney just for the financial stuff, to make things easier. I wasn't that far gone. "Kevin, I appreciate the offer, but I think I'll handle my own money." His face hardened for just a second, then the smile returned. Sure, Grandpa. I just want to help. You know that, right?" 2 weeks later, I got a call from my bank. Someone had tried to transfer $50,000 from my account using forged authorization. They'd caught it because the signature didn't match, but it had been close. Very close. "Do you recognize this name?" the bank manager asked, showing me the paperwork. "Kevin Morrison?" My blood went cold. I didn't confront Kevin directly. I was too shocked, too hurt. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I started watching him. I drove past his apartment building. I checked his social media, and what I found made me sick. Kevin wasn't working in IT anymore. He'd been fired 8 months ago. His girlfriend Brittany had left him 6 months back. He was behind on rent. His car had been repossessed, and according to his Facebook posts, he owed money to some very unpleasant people. And then I found the real knife in my back. I was looking through old emails. Margaret had set up the account before she died, and I barely used it. But there, buried in spam from 3 years ago, was a message from Manitoba Public Insurance, a notification about my life insurance policy beneficiary change. Except I'd never changed my beneficiary. The policy had been updated to make Kevin the sole beneficiary. $200,000 upon my death. The signature was close enough to pass a cursory inspection, but I knew my own signature. That wasn't it. Kevin had been planning this for years, since before Margaret died, maybe even since his father died. I felt physically ill. I drove home from the library, hands shaking, and sat in my small, subsidized apartment, trying to process it. My grandson, the child I'd loved, protected, provided for, had been systematically positioning himself to profit from my death for at least 3 years. The attempted bank fraud wasn't opportunistic. It was desperation. Whatever trouble Kevin was in, it was getting worse. And I was his solution. I should have gone to the police then. God, I wish I had, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. He was still my grandson, still Daniel's boy. I kept hoping there was an explanation, that I'd misunderstood somehow. I started sleeping with my door locked. I stopped mentioning my schedule to anyone, and I kept riding with Dennis, those 20 minutes of normalcy, holding me together. "You seem distracted lately," Dennis said one night in early March. "Everything okay?" "Family troubles," I said vaguely. Dennis nodded slowly. "The grandson you never talk about?" I looked at him sharply. "How did you—" "Robert, in 3 months, you've told me about your late wife, your son who died, your childhood in Saskatchewan, but you never once mentioned having a grandson, even though I see you wearing that world's best grandpa hat sometimes. A man doesn't avoid a topic like that unless it hurts." I found myself telling him everything. The house fire, Kevin's rejection, the attempted fraud, the life insurance. Dennis listened without interrupting, his jaw getting tighter with each detail. "Jesus, Robert," he finally said, "you need to go to the police. He's all I have left. He's trying to rob you. Maybe worse. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's an explanation. You're not wrong, and you know it." Dennis's voice was firm but not unkind. "I've seen this before. My daughter's husband went after Susan's inheritance. Some people, when they need money badly enough, they stop seeing you as family. They just see a payday. What did you do? Got a lawyer, protected what was mine, broke my daughter's heart, but I had no choice." He looked at me. "You've got to protect yourself, Robert, because I guarantee you, if Kevin's desperate enough to forge documents, he's desperate enough to do worse." I promised Dennis I'd think about it, but I was still in denial, still hoping. That hope died 2 nights later. I woke up at 3 a.m. to someone trying my door handle. My apartment was on the ground floor, window facing the parking lot. Through the thin curtain, I could see a silhouette, tall, young, moving with careful precision. "Kevin." I held my breath, watching him try the door, then move to the window. He tested it locked, thank God. After 5 minutes that felt like 5 hours, he left. The next morning, I found scratches around my mailbox lock. Someone had tried to pick it. I was being stalked by my own grandson. That's when I started carrying the evidence with me. Every document, every email, every bank statement. I kept it all in a folder in my work bag, afraid to leave it anywhere Kevin might find it. I was going to go to the police. I swear I was. I just needed to work up the courage. Then came last Thursday night. Dennis picked me up as usual, 10:45 p.m. I had his sandwich turkey and Swiss. No mustard, just like always. But I must have looked rough, because Dennis took one look at me and pulled over. What happened? Kevin came by my work. He was waiting in the parking lot when my shift ended. Wanted to talk about my future. Dennis. The way he looked at me, like I was already dead. "That's it. We're going to the police right now." "I can't. I need time to think." Dennis looked like he wanted to argue, but he just sighed and started driving. We rode in silence for a while. "You know what Susan used to say?" Dennis finally asked. "She said the hardest thing about cancer wasn't the dying. It was watching our daughter choose her deadbeat husband over us. Watching her steal from us to support his drug habit. Susan died thinking our daughter hated her. I'm sorry. My point is, Robert, sometimes family breaks your heart, and you've got to save yourself, even if it means accepting that someone you loved is gone." We were approaching my housing complex. Dennis started to slow down, then suddenly accelerated. "Dennis, what? Your grandson's truck?" he said, voice tight. "That's his truck parked near your building, isn't it? The blue Silverado you showed me?" I looked. He was right. Kevin's truck, the one I thought had been repossessed, but apparently he'd gotten back somehow, was parked in the shadows near my apartment. "He's waiting for you," Dennis said. "Maybe he just wants to talk." At midnight? Parked in the dark? Dennis's hands were white-knuckled on the wheel. "Robert, listen to me. Something's wrong. I can feel it." We drove past the complex. Dennis circled back, parking where we could see but not be seen. Kevin's truck was still there, and then we saw him standing near my door, looking at his phone, then at his watch. "He's timing your arrival," Dennis whispered. "He knows your schedule." We waited. 10 minutes passed. 20. Kevin kept checking his watch, getting more agitated. Finally, his phone rang. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see his body language. Angry, gestures, pacing, frustration. Then he went back to his truck, opened the back, and pulled something out. A jerry can. Oh God. I breathed. He's going to burn my apartment. Dennis had his phone out before I could stop him, calling 911, but I grabbed his arm. Wait, they'll never get here in time. And without proof of intent, Kevin can just say he was returning borrowed gas or something. What do you want to do? Drive me to work. Same as always. Let him think everything's normal. Robert, trust me. Please. Dennis looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. He drove me to the warehouse, but instead of dropping me off, he parked and waited. I went inside, clocked in, then immediately went to my supervisor. Family emergency, I said. I need to leave early. Can you mark me down for the full shift, please? He took one look at my face and agreed. I came back out to find Dennis waiting with the plow truck running. Whatever you're planning, I'm helping, he said. I need to document everything. Photos, video, something the police can't ignore. Kevin knows when I leave work he'll go back to my apartment while I'm gone, if we can catch him in the act. We drove back to my housing complex, parking the massive plow truck 3 buildings away. Dennis had a hunting camera in his truck for checking deer activity, he explained, and we set it up with a view of my door and window. Then we waited in the truck, engine running, heat on, watching from a distance. Kevin's truck came back at 11:30 p.m. We watched him approach my door. Knock first, checking if I was home, then try the handle again. And finally, he pulled out the jerry can. Now we call the police, Dennis said. Phone already out. But I was watching something else. Dennis, look at his other hand. Kevin was wearing latex gloves. And in his jacket pocket, I could see what looked like a cloth soaked in something. That's not just about burning my apartment, I whispered. He's going to make sure I'm inside when it happens. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Kevin wasn't trying to steal from me. He was trying to kill me. Make it look like another electrical fire, maybe, or like I'd fallen asleep with a cigarette, even though I'd never smoked. With me dead, he'd get the life insurance. $200,000. More than enough to solve his problems. My grandson was planning my murder. Dennis was already giving our location to 911, but the dispatcher said police were dealing with a multi-car accident on the perimeter highway. Minimum 20-minute response time. Stay there and stay safe, the dispatcher instructed. Do not engage. Kevin was circling my apartment now, checking sight lines, making sure no one was watching. The complex was quiet. Most residents were elderly or worked early mornings. No one was out at this hour. He started splashing gasoline around my door. Screw this, Dennis said, putting the plow truck in gear. Dennis, what are you doing? Saving your life. He drove the massive truck directly toward my building, lights blazing, horn blaring. Kevin looked up, startled, and saw us coming. For a second, he was frozen, then he dropped the jerry can and ran. Dennis cornered him against the building with the truck, not hitting him but blocking his escape. He threw the plow into park and looked at me. Get out. Confront him. Say whatever you need to say. I've got the camera recording everything. I climbed down from the cab. Kevin was pressed against the wall, eyes wide, looking between me and Dennis like a trapped animal. Grandpa, I can explain. You were going to kill me. My voice was steady, even though I was shaking inside. Your own grandfather. For insurance money. No, the gas was for my truck. I was going to ask if you had a funnel. Don't. The word came out hard. I know about the forged life insurance documents, the attempted bank fraud. I know you've been planning this for years. Kevin's face went through several expressions: surprise, fear, calculation. Then something cold settled in his eyes. You don't know what it's like, he said. You had everything handed to you. A house, a wife, a good job. I've got nothing. Dad's dead. You've got all this money sitting there, and you're just wasting it. Living in this dump when you could help your own family. I offered you a home after the fire. You told me to figure it out myself, because I knew you had insurance money coming. I was trying to teach you self-reliance, and you just wouldn't die. The words hung in the air. Kevin seemed to realize what he'd said, but it was too late. Dennis's camera had caught everything. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Kevin made a break for it, but Dennis was faster than he looked. He blocked Kevin's path, and suddenly we were all struggling. Kevin threw a wild punch that connected with Dennis's jaw. I grabbed Kevin's arm, and we all went down in a heap. That's when Dennis saw it, the cloth Kevin had dropped. Dennis picked it up, sniffed it, and his face went white. Chloroform, he said. This is chloroform. Kevin was planning to knock me out first. Make sure I couldn't escape the fire. Make sure I died. The police arrived to find the three of us on the ground, Dennis sitting on Kevin's back, me holding the jerry can as evidence, and Kevin screaming about false imprisonment and assault. But the hunting camera had recorded everything. Every word, including Kevin saying, "You just wouldn't die." The police arrested Kevin on the spot. Attempted murder, arson, fraud, forgery. The list of charges kept growing. In his truck, they found more evidence. Printouts of my insurance policy. Maps of the housing complex with fire escape routes marked. Searches for undetectable poisons, and how to make death look accidental on his phone. My grandson had been methodically planning my murder for at least 6 months. The trial was 3 months ago. Kevin's lawyer tried to claim temporary insanity, financial stress, a cry for help. The jury didn't buy it. The premeditation was too clear, too calculated. He got 15 years. I attended every day of the trial. Not for vengeance, but because I needed to understand how the sweet boy I'd raised could become this. His mother testified that Kevin had always been difficult, that there'd been warning signs even as a child, petty theft, lying, a complete inability to feel empathy. He learned to fake it, she said, to mirror what people wanted to see, but inside there was nothing. I tried to warn Daniel, but he thought I was just being cruel. Maybe she was right. Maybe the Kevin I loved had never really existed. Or maybe something broke in him when his father died. I'll never know. What I do know is that Dennis saved my life that night. After the trial ended, I sold the insurance payout property I couldn't bear to rebuild after everything that had happened. With that money and what I'd saved from working, I bought a small house in River Heights. 3 bedrooms, decent yard, quiet neighborhood. It's too much space for just me, I told Dennis. I'm thinking of renting out a room. You interested? Dennis looked at the house, then at me, and I saw his eyes get wet. Robert, I can't take charity. It's not charity. It's family. Dennis moved in last month. We split the bills, share the cooking, watch hockey together on Friday nights. He's teaching me how to play crib. I'm teaching him how to make Margaret's famous tourtière. His daughter called last week, first time in 2 years. She'd heard about what happened, saw the news coverage. She apologized for everything, said she'd left her husband, wanted to rebuild their relationship. Dennis was cautious, but hopeful. Maybe some families can be saved, he said. I hope he's right. But I've learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who locks the doors when danger comes calling. Kevin sends letters from prison sometimes. Apologies, explanations, excuses. I don't read them. I have a lawyer handle everything estate-related, making sure Kevin can never access anything of mine again. Am I angry? Sometimes. Mostly I'm just sad. Sad for the relationship we could have had. Sad for Daniel, who would be heartbroken to see what his son became. Sad for the little boy in my memories who no longer exists, if he ever did. But I'm also grateful. Grateful for Dennis, who saw danger when I was still in denial. Grateful for second chances. Grateful to be alive. Last week, I officially filed papers to make Dennis the beneficiary of my life insurance. He tried to refuse, but I insisted. You saved my life, I told him. You're my family now. This is what family does. Dennis got that look again, the one where his eyes get wet and he has to clear his throat a few times. You know what the funny thing is? He said. I told Susan, right before she died, that I'd never trust anyone again, never let anyone close. And then you needed a ride to work. Funny how things work out. Yeah, funny. We sat on the porch that evening, watching the sun set over Winnipeg. 2 old men who'd lost everything and somehow found each other. Dennis had his coffee double-double, just the way he likes it. I had mine black, the way Margaret taught me. Hey, Robert, Dennis said. Yeah? Thanks for bringing me sandwiches all those months. Turkey and Swiss, no mustard. Nobody done something that thoughtful for me since Susan died. Thanks for picking me up, for showing me what family really means. Brothers, we shook on it. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was home, not because of the house, or the city, or any of it, but because I was sitting next to someone who'd proven, beyond any doubt, that they'd protect me when it mattered most. That's what I tell people now, when they ask about Kevin. I tell them I lost a grandson but gained a brother, and somehow, Despite everything, I came out ahead. Because blood might be thicker than water, but brotherhood, real brotherhood, is thicker than both. It's built on trust, on sacrifice, on showing up every single night at 10:45 p.m. with a warm truck and a kind word. It's Dennis locking the door and saying, "Don't get out." It's knowing someone has your back, even when your own blood wants you dead. That's family. That's everything. And that's worth more than any inheritance, any insurance policy, any amount of money could ever be. That's priceless.